And we are recording on Monday, December 29th, 2025 at 12:34 p.m. Eastern Time with Mr. Halsey English, Mr. Ian Burlingame. You guys can go to the links in the description. YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, Substack, all that stuff. Yeah, I am complete this. I just did a show before this. A week of not doing shows, and more importantly, a week of eating like, I don't know, 4,000 calories a day. I went to the gym this morning, and that was the most brutal, humiliating thing. I
hmm
normally can crank out 70 push-ups like nothing. Dude, I have so much fucking water weight and just straight up like shit in my system. I couldn't do anything, man. I was huffing and puffing. I skipped cardio outright. Yeah, I'm realizing after just doing a show now, I'm like, man, it all goes completely offline. Like brain, body, everything, which is fine. You need to do it, but yeah, so that's my explanation as to why I'm late for you guys. And but yeah, Tom Malonga was going to join us. He can't. He's busy today. So for everybody listening, us three are doing a show Friday. But yeah, I always let EM start, so I'll switch it up. Halsey, how you doing, sir?
Thank God. How are you?
I'm doing very good, thank you. I can't complain. Everything's hunky dory, so I should be very grateful. EM?
Yeah, I'm good. Today is the 36th anniversary of the death of my brother.
I'm sorry, sir.
Sorry to hear that. No, it's an honor him kind of day,
Sure.
right? So, how do we shape men into men in the modern world? It's kind of like the big question, isn't it?
Always.
About that, yeah. I'd say only that is yeah, I mean, I don't think I don't think passivity has gotten us anywhere good. And I think that, I mean, right, it's a tired meme. It's certainly not a novel idea that the weak men create hard times. We're in the hard times right now. But how do we pull back from? Okay, so we'll just start immediately with, you know, it has, let's use it as a microcosm. The last week, we could say that's the weak men, right? The last week,
Mm-hmm.
fucking sleeping in, not reading, not meditating, certainly not exercising, not doing podcasts. Really, though, I don't know, the only consistent thing I did each day was, I don't know, put clean clothes on. Uh, all well and good, all fun, all good break. But as I'm now seeing in the first day back, it sucks. But there's no way around it, right? It just is what it is. And I don't regret any of it. But let's say I did regret it. Let's say I didn't consciously control the last 7 days. Let's say that was the previous generation of Tommies.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Still sucks to suck. But there is the whole today is Monday. It's just where you are. It doesn't matter who made you eat the pumpkin pie. It doesn't matter what blah blah blah. You're here. The great quote from the book The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck is something may not be your fault, but it is your responsibility. It's not your fault if somebody T-bones you drunk in an intersection. But it is your
Mm-hmm.
responsibility now. It's just what
Sure.
it is. And that's kind of how I look at where we are is it's our responsibility. You can blame it on the boomers, you can blame it on fucking whatever you want. Blame it on China. It's just where we are.
Yes.
How do we pivot from there?
Yeah. No, I think that's exactly right. We are ultimately responsible. However we got here,
We're here.
we're here.
Why do you have cancer? Did somebody put polonium in your foot, or are you smoking cigarettes, or is it just an unlucky roll of the dice? All of it. And then one day when you have time, you can maybe go back and investigate. But right now,
And see where you pissed the Russians off.
yeah. But right now, yeah, you're right. Right now, you got to start. They normally do polonium, right? They prefer polonium.
Yeah. There are
Yeah.
some poisons. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, Halsey, what's your thought?
I mean, I'm listening to what you're saying, but I don't think we're in the heart of the bad times. I
No.
think we're very far from it.
No. No. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So I
So,
didn't articulate that we were in the bad times. What I articulated is how do we, before we get to the worst, because then it's too late,
Yeah.
right? When a substantive shock to the environment occurs, the life forms have to already be in a state of adaptation.
Sure.
When the shock happens, if they're not already in that motion of evolving and changing, that substantive shock in the environment will wipe them out.
Yeah, I don't think I'm doubting that. I don't think I would disagree with that. I just think that we're in a time where we like to think like the end of the world is coming, but we're very, very, very far from it. And the idea that our population is ready for some kind of like mass move, I don't think they are. I think that people seem to be too contented with shit, basically. And the people that are complaining about, oh, my generation isn't getting this, my generation isn't getting that, they're not serious people. Like, they're not serious about any of this. They're not serious about fixing anything. They just seem to want to like troll and try to cause like some level of chaos, which is, I mean, I guess funny to some people, but I don't see anybody ready to take any kind of responsibility for almost anything. And without that, there's only going to be like minimal movement.
The very same thing was said in the 1920s about that generation that would go on to become what we call the greatest generation.
Mm-hmm.
The exact same thing was said, right?
Mm-hmm.
We also have to remember that at the same time, it took from the mid to late 1920s into the mid 1930s to get that generation all riled up for an all-out slaughter of a war.
Yeah.
And the industrial scale, eradication of peoples.
I agree with that.
So, and we see it with the groypers and these other things. Again, that word is actually even worse than moist.
It is. No, I've said it before. It's as far as PR goes, it is phonetically disgusting.
Oh, it is brilliant for exactly what it is. It's meant to get you into disgust.
Yeah.
Well, actually, what it's supposed to do is it's supposed to attract all of those who are already in a place of disgust, and then give them a platform and a narrative around which to gather.
Yeah, and then we're the untouchables, we're the no-nothings.
Correct. And then for the rest of us, it's like, that's disgusting. I don't want any part of it.
Right.
Why? Because we're not in a place of disgust, but it's meant to attract those in a place of disgust. Sure sounds like those German fellows, right? Sure sounds exactly like what they did,
yeah.
Right? So,
I mean, I can't say you're wrong.
Well, and it's, to your point, Halsey, yeah, and we're not even close to the worst of it yet. We probably don't get to that till at least the beginning of it, 2028. We might not even start it till the 2030s.
Right. I happen to agree completely with that. And I also I'm with Tom Luongo on this. Like, there's a lot of moves being made at much higher levels to mitigate a lot of the things that could lead us to disaster. And my only curiosity is to whether those things are going to pay off, or whether the pain will get great enough where the cost of inaction will outweigh the cost of action.
Here's where my so I don't disagree with that either. Here's where my genuine concern is that we have technically been in an economic depression since 2011, 2012. It can't be hidden anymore. There are, some numbers just came out today, 2 million people living in their car in the United States. That number is probably 5 times that high. All you got to do is drive around this country to see. Okay. And that's quite literally. And I've driven back and forth across this country in the last 5 years, 4 times, north to south, east to west, and every car park, every COA, every pull-out spot in anywhere rural or urban is filled. I know people when I left San Francisco a couple of years ago who were making $200,000 a year living in their car because they had $120,000 student loan, because 30% of the houses had been bought by speculators and was sitting vacant because they got the tax write-off.
And so even the ones that weren't were such a ridiculous cost.
Correct.
It was unlivable.
Correct. And this is happening all over. It's not just happening in California. This is happening in Texas even. Right. So what are those? Those are the tent cities of the Great Depression. They're just way nicer tents, right? We got YouTube channels for the glory of van life. I'm not going to lie. I watched some of that stuff. Some of those vans are bad.
I do too.
Right?
I do too.
right? I'm thinking maybe when I'm an old man, I'm just going to buy one of these fancy vans and drive around. Like there's this one guy, Norwegian explorer. He's got a channel and he does his winters in the Arctic in a van.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. In Norway. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really have any argument either. I mean, I've seen some ridiculous vans that they've made, and
Yeah.
just, I mean, I also romanticize lifestyles that aren't my own,
Sure.
like I think a
So
lot of people do.
grass is
Yeah.
always greener.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
There's also
Out the van door.
well, it's there's also any situation is never as bad when you consciously choose to go do it.
Yeah.
I go to I played like rec league basketball kind of. I never fucking did any sports because I hated being told to run and told to lift. Ironically, I've worked out every day for almost 25 years because it's self-induced. The
right.
pain is never as bad, even if it's the same thing. If you're gonna go do van life, that's entirely different than I have to go live in my van.
For
Well,
sure.
the thing is that
Which I was
it
gonna say maybe to
started
loop it
because
back
people
into what
had to.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say loop it back into what Halsey said is
Yeah.
so maybe it's like let's go do these measures now
Right.
before we have to do them.
Correct. Correct. And it's, oh, by the way, it's even boomers who have sold their homes at the, peaks of the markets and bought,
Hmm.
moved into fifth wheels or, nice RVs, et cetera. It's every generation from Gen Z up to boomers. And they're everywhere in this country. And oh, by the way, I just talked to a friend of mine in Ireland. It's in Ireland. It's in the United Kingdom. It's in parts of Europe.
Hmm. I know you're
This
not
is
wrong. I've talked to plenty of people that have said this is not a localized problem.
No, it is everywhere. This is the tent cities of the Great Depression.
Hmm.
Okay. Where did all the homeless come from? The numbers right now are roughly 750,000. Those are government numbers. So what do? We multiply those by about four. We probably got 2.1 million homeless people. And again, this is a giant country, and you got to travel around it to see the full scale of it. Right? We probably
Again,
got
I know you're not wrong.
we got
So
100,000 in San Francisco alone. We got another 150, 200,000 in Los Angeles and Orange counties alone. So don't tell
and
me we got 750,000 in the whole country.
it's not only that, it's that the states where this is the most acute problem are perfectly fine with this happen. In fact, they're being incentivized to make it worse.
14th Amendment, it's called apportionment.
Hmm.
Could you
I've walked. Yeah, go
all
ahead.
right, could you explain that, Halsey?
Well, when you look at California, right?
Yeah.
California had something like 12, I think it was 12,000 homeless, right? Or 12, no, 24,000, it was some ridiculous number. Then they spent $34 billion on the problem, right? And now we have 15,000 more homeless or 15 million, however many the
we got
number
way
is.
more, hundreds of thousands. But the real reason they do that, because that 34 billion didn't go to the homeless, right?
No.
That laundered back through NGOs to, um, it used to be that the lead son or daughter inherited the estate, and the second and third son, second son went into the military, went to the knighthood, into the warrior, and the third son or daughter, but the son actually went into the priesthood.
Right.
Today, the second and third sons or daughters go into NGOs and nonprofits. Back to why California, New York, et cetera, have no, Arizona and others have no problem with all this homeless. It's the 14th Amendment and the apportionment. For every 750,000 people you have, you get another seat in Congress. And oh, by the way, it's not necessarily, hasn't been adjudicated yet whether they have to be citizens or not. Oh, and that's not where the real power is. Where the real power is you get judges, particularly federal judges, based off of the legal caseload. So you kind of want a lot of criminality because it gives you more judges that you can put in positions of power, which gives you more ultimate judicial power. And I don't remember what it's like. I remember I did the numbers here sometime, and something I wrote, but it's 750,000 for a congressman. It's something like 50,000 for a judge.
Oh,
Sounds about right.
what's that quote? The in cyber dynamics, what a system does is its purpose.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the purpose of the system is what it does.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's also been a big thing that like EM has talked about extensively and got me down about 800 rabbit holes with the same thing. When you look at the forces that are pushing these things, and this isn't conspiratorial stuff, this is like wide out in the open, right? Like one thing you said to me in our first interview, and I've literally been saying it ever since.
Mhm.
All these people that are Qatar, 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 Qatar. Qatar is us.
Yes.
Like this
Yes.
idea that there's this shadowy Islamic force coming out of Qatar that's trying to fuck up our country. It's just not true.
A city of London.
Yeah.
The
It's our
Emir
deep
was
state.
created by the city of London, just as the
Mhm.
House of Saud was.
Mm-hmm. And so it's not surprising at this point when you see Al Jazeera constantly pumping out communist libtard stuff to try to convince our whole country that, the left is the right thing because that's Europe. That's what Europe wants. Qatar and Europe and our Democrats want the same for us that they want for Europe, which is just complete submission and complete displacement. They see they can't provide what they've wanted to provide for a very long time now. And so now they're done even trying to provide it. They're just trying to make us shut up about it. And I think we're in a uniquely different position than Europe, but when you see the numbers of illegals that have come into this country just under Biden, the problem is so. I think he froze. I was wondering if he was frozen or if he was just really into what I was saying.
No, he'll be back. Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? Like the numbers are so out of control. They're so high and they're so ridiculous that you can't look at it as just, I know people like to say suicidal empathy or all of this stuff. It's all just bullshit. It's because we're a population that isn't going to be able to be ruled by all of this bullshit for forever. So instead of like satisfying our desires and wants of government, they're just replacing us. And I would love to think that people aren't going to put up with it, except for as of now they have.
It's because there's an old saying, quite literally over 1,000 years old in the English language, right? The Saxon is slow to anger.
Right.
And why is the Saxon slow to anger? Because when we do anger, man, we're really good at killing.
Mm-hmm.
We are probably the best people in the history of the world at killing.
Yeah, but you know what? You know what the crazy part is the subversive elements, especially online. In real life, it's a little different, but especially online, they're not Saxons. They're not even really white. They're mostly degenerate, drug addicts,
Yes.
losers,
Yes.
and foreigners, and the subversion that you see, which is funny because I go back to your article about the scapegoat all the time, and I think like every time I see it now, it's not like a feeling of dread. Like I don't sit there and go, "Holy shit, this is bad." I sit here thinking, these are our subversives. They're telling us what
Correct.
they're doing. They're just blaming it on me.
Correct. It's
You
just
know what I'm
projection.
saying?
Yeah, projection,
Right.
transference, and isolation. That's the only weapons they got. At a certain point, though, we just turn them off. Right? How did the United States of America come about? 30 years of attempting to get redress through the courts in every way possible. And oh, by the way, not just by the founding fathers, but people need to realize that a lot of the founding fathers were backed by English nobility.
Sure.
Dukes and earls and barons. And we even had American, colonial barons. So this wasn't just, the free men. And by the way, none of those men were common men either. They were all, the elite of their time.
For sure.
At some point, the subset of the elites that are the ones truly threatened realize there is no more recourse. Right? That there is no more we can do to seek recourse from the Crown's courts. Now that's the same as the Supreme Court here, the federal, the district courts, et cetera. Still the Crown courts. In fact, it's directly patterned after. But at a certain point, they realize there is no more we can do to attain the redress of grievances, the rebalancing of power. And therefore, we and our families, why did the 50 whatever signers of the Declaration sign? Because if they didn't, they were on the docket to be destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
And they had to come together in a union and commit, even as they said, right? We hereby commit life and fortune to this great endeavor. Well, at some point, and I see it here and there, and unlike my friend Tom, I'm not as sanguine as he is about how well things are going and how well it's going to turn out. But I do very much enjoy his enthusiasm and his depth of looking at things. So you're right, as you said earlier, so many of the right things are happening. In little quiet things here and there, I am starting to hear some of the true elites, not the excess or petty elites, start to accept and realize that there may not be any more redress through the courts. And
I can agree with that, but I can also agree, and this is where I think the difference is in the way that I look at what Tom says and the way that you do, is that Tom, even though he knows it, he doesn't acknowledge that all of the things he's talking about require a certain amount of pain, right? That it's not that. No, I know, but he doesn't say it. Like he gets very excited about what's going on, and he leaves off the part with the pain.
Yeah.
Right. That like
the right
twice
balance.
right, like twice in our history, right? We've debased our currency in the 20s and again in the 70s. Right. And
actually, technically, we did it again in 2008 with qualitative easing.
Yeah, but that wasn't like really the same thing because we didn't have an alternative to write the debts off our books, right? That's the only difference between 2008 and the other two. So we're basically doing it again, and the same pattern is also repeating itself. That they need a Republican to do it, a Democrat. Like even though Roosevelt was a Democrat, like back then the lines weren't so drawn as they are now as to what a Democrat is and what a Republican is. But when Nixon did it, they needed a Republican to do it. Then they got him out of office, right? And right, basically,
they're going to do me like Jack, is what he actually said.
Yeah,
they're doing me like Jack, the whole Bay of Pigs thing.
And then Carter came in because, after all, now that the pain was being felt, the Democrats thought they could usher in the good times and get the credit for it, which was ridiculous. But they're doing the same thing now, and that's where you see the subversion coming in, where you see the Tucker Carlsons and the JD Vances and all of them coming in that they're setting it up for, if this does work, where they debase the currency and get us on somewhat of a good path that's going to, again, require a lot of pain, but at least get us somewhere. They're positioning themselves to take over the country when it happens, after we've already done the bad part, right? Like Trump is one of those people. He's willing to do the bad part, right? He knows he's going to have to do something. The economy will not last until 2028, not in the direction it's going. And with the amount of fraud that's coming out, and until we see like some kind of serious arrests of major politicians, which we won't, by the way, it's not real. They're just letting us know it's happening so that we can be pissed off about something and whine why nothing ever happened. Right?
I think very much to your point. I think we're in the early days of a revolution. And when I say revolution, I mean a bloody revolution.
I know you think that. I don't agree with you on that. I don't see there being a way to do so that would unite enough people. And I'm not talking about like half the country. I'm talking just, they say 10% of dedicated individuals can do a revolution. I don't see that 10%. So
I do.
I don't. Okay, but again, it's just it's probably arguing over semantics. Like I don't see it, but I'm not saying it's not there. I'm just saying I don't see it. Right? With that being said, it's the younger generation, which would be necessary for at least foot soldiering, right? They're pissed off, but they're not pissed off about anything that they believe they can change.
Everybody said that this is exactly what was written about in the New York Times in 1920s about the greatest generation. And it took 8 to 10 years to get them into shape. and for the elites to get oriented around who's going to be in what camp and how are we going to make this go down.
Yeah, but the difference being is that because of the Great Depression, people were much more willing to join the military. When they joined the military, they went overseas to fight. They didn't fight here.
What happens when the social safety networks go away here?
Mm-hmm. I agree.
What happens when, they say food prices are up 30%? I'm sorry. I buy one bag of groceries and I don't buy fancy stuff. I don't buy cheap shit because that'll kill us.
Mm-hmm.
One bag of groceries is over $100 now.
Oh,
that's happened in the last 2 years. And I don't go to fancy grocery stores. I don't buy big brand names, but I buy healthy stuff. I try to buy local as much as possible. One bag of groceries is over $100.
Yeah, it's way worse for me because I buy kosher food, but I've seen the increases. Like I understand that things are really tough, and when you look at previous collapses of other empires, when you look at what's going on now, what they do is they make the cost of goods lower. Things that like don't really matter, like cell phones and TVs and stuff like that. But the cost, right? But the cost of the properties, the cost of the things that you need to advance in society, a home, a car, a decent job, all of those, the price of that is going way up.
Healthy food, healthy living, the ability to actually live. So this also goes way beyond any of those things. Those are, of course, the triggers, right? But there is an anger and a rage in 3 generations now. And it's growing and it's being shaped. And again, I hate this word, but the Groypers are intentionally shaping it towards the Nazi fashion. When I say National Socialist, say that because the other shorter word gets so dirtied. And we also have to remember fascist and National Socialist are not the same. Fascism came out of Italy, came out of Mussolini, and it was later adopted by the National Socialists as an economic system because National Socialist economic system did not work.
For sure.
Right?
National Socialism was just communist light. And
it wasn't communist light. It was, instead of destroying everything to rebuild our utopian bureaucratic system, we're going to take control of everything so we can bring about our bureaucratic utopian system. Neither one of them work. Right? Fascism did work. And oh, by the way, FDR ushered it in here in the United States in his 12 years in office. We've been a fascist system since the 30s. What is that? And people should read the 1932 speech, Mussolini's speech. He said, "We are Christians. I am a Christian, but my church is the state."
Well, I mean, I would argue that we've been a fascist country since the end of the Civil War, but just it wasn't defined. It wasn't.
I know formally, all the rules and procedures and processes and legislation and reorientation of the judiciary and executive power and all that happened under FDR. I mean, it started with Wilson, right? If we're going to dig up and desecrate a body, that would probably be the one.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Right.
Next to Lincoln, he was by far the worst. Him and Barack Obama were like next to Lincoln were the worst presidents this country.
Only Wilson was way smarter than Obama, way more capable. Yeah, and Obama is a direct extension of the Bushes. Go look at the Sotero family and the Bush family connections going back all the way.
Oh, I know.
Right,
I know.
So, go figure. Some Texans would burn a black guy put the black guy up, take the fall for everything. Right. But back to the revolution. I believe very fundamentally this is across the entire English speaking world and maybe parts of Europe. But we are at a civilizational cultural revolution, far more than a form of government kind of revolution. Although I personally don't believe Republican self-rule is going to survive.
It might. My issue is that I could easily be persuaded onto your side. I still believe, and I said it earlier, the issue is the illegals and the mass migration. Is that if Trump is actually serious and manages to do it, because he still has a few years left, if we kick out enough illegals, enough foreigners, we could be put on the right track again.
There's 100 million. It would take us 40 years, that's why I said years to get rid of.
I know. Well, it depends how many self-deport, but I agree with you.
That's a tiny number. And oh, by the way, don't believe the numbers because they're still getting moved around our communities here. We get new batches moved in here every 3 to 6 months.
Right. No, I get that. But what I'm saying is that if that doesn't get taken care of, then revolution will be the only
That's
possible
exactly.
thing to do.
Uh,
Because as of right now, as I said, with the fraud that you're seeing from the Somalis, from the Mexicans, from the states themselves, they've now figured out a way to enrich themselves while blaming people that are just basically doing what comes naturally to
it's
them.
the mob state. I've
Sure.
written about this extensively, right? This is the mob state. We stopped having an actual economy, functioning economy with prohibition.
Hmm.
When
I mean,
everybody,
Elon Musk wrote today, and I don't doubt him, that the level of fraud is probably somewhere close to $1.9 trillion a year is
yeah,
going out of our government's expenditures on fraud.
yeah,
That's insane,
yeah,
because that's
at
that's
every
higher than
level,
our
it's
that's higher
city.
than our budget deficit,
Yeah, yeah.
you
Well,
know.
and look at all the foreign aid, right? Through State Department, through military assistance dollars, through
Hmm.
um, humanitarian aid, et cetera. All of that goes into former colonial banks in the parts of the world, and then all flows back to Europe. And that's something like $2 trillion a year.
Hmm. I know. And our economic model is obviously not sustainable, especially because in order to maintain the fraud, it has to be funded through government, not just through the money that they defraud the government out of, but the government has to keep the fraudsters in a place where they're able to commit the fraud that they're
How did we
committing.
get to $38 trillion in federal debt? And that's about equaled with, if you take municipalities, counties, and states and add that together, that's about another $38 trillion. I think, in fact, I think it's a little bit more, a
The
little over
number,
40.
on the low side, between unfunded liabilities, the states and us, we're at the lowest I've seen is 225 trillion, which just for scale, that's more than every single dollar, good, service, and property in all of America and Europe combined.
All priced, any asset priced in dollars.
Yep. Like that amount of money technically doesn't exist. The
Well,
amount.
and two things prop it up: roughly $2 trillion a year in cash that comes in from the illicit operations that keeps the banks afloat,
Hmm.
right? That then they 10 to 100 apothecate, right, or hypothecate. The other piece that keeps it afloat is the derivatives markets,
Hmm.
which in our
Which are just
lifetime
just
we went.
gambling.
Well, it's just purely made up, right?
Hmm.
It's not even just gambling. It's just magically made up BS, right? And we went in our lifetimes from when we were younger from, I don't remember what it was, something like 20 layers, 20 or 40 layers of derivatives. We're up to 700 now.
Hmm.
700. That means for every $1 in the system, there's 700 made up dollars
Hmm.
in the
Betting
derivatives
on what
markets.
that $1 is going to
Correct.
do.
Correct.
Hmm.
Correct.
And
And where'd that $1 come from? Well, it's not coming from an actual functioning economy anymore. It's mostly coming from directly from illicit trade.
hmm. Exactly. And every time we do something that's even slightly above board, we just turn it into more welfare, which
Correct.
is ridiculous.
Correct.
I
Correct.
mean,
Now that's what Chevron was all about. Chevron, the Chevron doctrine was all about, okay, there's a new industry. I remember this in
mhm,
tech when I was in Silicon Valley for many, many years. Um, okay, new industry came out. What
mhm,
happened almost immediately? Regulatory bodies showed up out of nowhere
yep,
with totally made up things that weren't even true, by the way. They weren't even on the books to threaten us to pay them. And if not, then they were going to take us through some legal action.
mhm,
It was just extortion. And then, if somebody did fight, because some of the investors would put 30% of the investment aside specifically to fight legally,
mm,
what would they do? They go back and write a regulation
yeah,
or a code or a whatever, and then they would go, file some, legal action with the courts. This is what Chevron was all about, so that if any new industry emerged, it would get taxed out of it, get taxed and regulated out of, any profitability would get, sucked out of it to
any
feed the welfare
profitability
state.
outside of
Correct.
dependency, any
Correct.
profitability outside of
Correct.
dependency,
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. Better said.
you know.
Right. But the whole thing's been propped up by illicit, by cash, actual cash. Okay, well, what's that cash earnings? Well, that's the opium war 2.0 being waged in the United States.
Mhm.
Straight up.
I mean, it's not even just the opium war because yes, I agree with you because I assume you're talking about like the fentanyl and all the illicit drugs
All
that
the
come.
drugs, crack cocaine back in the 80s, and
Hmm.
all, MDMA and ketamine and all these other drugs.
And now we're doing it
Marijuana.
legally too, though. That's
Correct.
the other problem.
Correct.
We're creating drugs to fix problems that don't exist. You know what I'm
Well, and then you
saying?
do the human trafficking on top of that,
Hmm.
right? That's part of the opium war as well. That's the human side of it.
Yep, 100%. And
So,
the thing that's crazy is all of these problems are solvable, right? Like
but
I
but how? See, this is the thing that I don't think people understand. When the entire financial system is built upon derivatives and illicit trade,
mhm.
and it will take you 20 or 30. Now, there is a way we could suddenly rapidly reindustrialize the way the
Yep.
Germans did in the 1930s by shoving a bunch of people into these camps, these very large camps, by the way, that we built all over this country.
Hmm.
We could shove a lot of brown people in those camps and force labor them to rebuild our manufacturing base. It's not like that hasn't been done before. I'm not calling for it, by the way. In fact,
Okay.
that's one of the things I worry about the most
Hmm.
because it's been done in the last century in order to get prepared for this big war.
Hmm. I mean, we can do it without shoving people in camps, though, because again,
Well, but we have to stop worshiping GDP,
right. Well, GDP
right?
is a fake number to begin
It's
with,
totally
but
made up, and we keep
mhm.
changing the expressions. And so I completely agree with you, Halsey. There's two things that have to happen. One, we need to stop following GDP,
Mhm.
period. And the second thing is that and if we stop following GDP, then we won't care about population numbers.
Why do you say that?
Because the reason that all these people were flooded in here, the reason that that it's almost impossible to get rid of them is because our whole system is based off of GDP
Sure,
and
I can
GDP
agree with that.
improvements. And you need bodies, you need population growth at a certain rate, it's above two something percent per year,
Hmm.
in order for you to even have the illusion or sustain the illusion of GDP growth.
Right. No, I agree with you on that. I
So
mean,
if we're
granted, they do it through the stock market as well, but
but even
that's even
that's got to
worse.
be even that's because one, you've got the seven fangs, and then the rest are the consumables that prop up the markets or sustain the markets. But you got to have the consumers, right? Now, yes, you'll put Indians in charge of your companies, CEOs and CFOs, so they'll sign off on made up financial statements,
Hmm.
which is why they're doing it, right?
Agreed.
But even that's not sustainable. So, point is, we got to stop following GDP as the basis of us as a success of a people, as an economic base. And we're going to
Hmm.
have to rebuild with our own populations. That's going to take us 20 years. But that means we need to, if we give up chasing GDP, then we don't need all these 100 million foreigners in here to artificially prop up a number that doesn't matter anyways. And we can get rid of them. And then we can take the next 20 years and rebuild our industrial base. Why? One, because robotics can help with this to a certain degree. But the other piece is um, we are defensible. We
Yes,
defended
that's
this.
true.
We are physically, geographically defensible
Hmm.
with a much smaller population. Because, by the way, do you think all these Browns flooding in here are going to fight for us?
No, absolutely not. If anything, they'll fight
Right?
against us.
They'll fight against us. They're already doing it.
Hmm.
It's so
Maybe
racist of you
that's the way
guys
we
to
do it.
assume that they're not patriots.
Well, maybe that's what
No.
we do. Maybe we start a big war and we start drafting them, sending them to the front lines, and maybe they'll rapidly accelerate their self deportations.
Well,
Again, I'm not
here's the
calling for
problem.
that. I'm just
I hear what you're saying, but you know what's funny is because you're onto something even more, but you're just not. I'm sure you understand this, but you're not explaining it well enough for the audience. In order to stop using GDP, the government has to admit how bad things are,
correct,
right?
correct,
Which is on the level of like traveling to Mars. It's
telling a woman to calm down.
yeah, exactly, same thing.
You're acting like, hey, you're acting like your mother.
Yeah,
Or my ex-wife's even better.
Tommy passed away today. Tommy's body was found.
exactly. But in order to get us off the standard of GDP, there's a method that we could use to get basically all the Browns out that would work. It's just, again, it would require government action that I don't believe they'd be willing to do. If you just, I think the law is already on the books, but if not, you just pass a law that says all employers of illegals will literally get jail time and a massive fine that'll put them out of business and
Yeah.
enforce it.
Yes.
Then there won't be any more jobs for illegals,
Yeah.
and they will start hiring Americans, and Americans will reindustrialize.
Yeah.
It's just it would require bravery by the government that I don't think they have.
Well, they have to be forced to by the people. I want to be careful as well, right? When I say the Browns, I don't mean all Browns, because we got some Brown, like the piece I wrote here recently about tribalism. We got some Browns have been here with us since the beginning. And we got the Hispanic, the Spanish civilizational, darker skinned folks out here in the West Coast. They've been here for 2 centuries before we got here.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's all the ones over the last 40, 50 years that we didn't want. We didn't ask for. We've been trying to get rid of and trying to say, you don't belong here. I want to be careful because we do have Browns that do belong here.
I agree with you, and I don't feel the need to make the distinction myself. Maybe it's just because like I consider myself somewhat of a minority, so I don't feel the need to make the distinction. I think that I still like the term heritage Americans because I think it does encompass the Browns you're talking about, the African Americans. It encompasses the people that have been here forever.
Well,
Right,
they fought in all of our wars and
Right.
helped build our industries. And
I think it's a kind of the Dr. Seuss. If they mind, they don't matter. If they matter, they don't mind. I think the people that are intelligent enough, like I just texted him earlier, Ty Smith, I've had on the podcast, Navy SEAL, black guy. Yeah, of course. Of course, it's like, duh. And I think the people that are too stupid to understand that probably aren't even worth trying to win over. So it's
my kid's half brown. My kid's half Filipina.
yeah, it's
And her step grandfather, I don't know how that's called, but he was a Navy guy.
yeah. No,
Right?
I think it's the people with the IQ to understand it don't need it clarified.
Yeah. Well, I just want to be careful.
Yeah,
'cause
no, you're good. No,
I got some stalker woman who freaking follows me on every channel, on every show, and every post.
and
You know who she is, Tommy.
Yeah, you
I
broke
get it too.
Yeah.
So I know what you're talking about. I get it too.
Yeah.
But
you broke the
again,
cardinal rule. You're never supposed to acknowledge the stalker on a show. You don't give them power. You're supposed to act
I
like
don't
they
want
don't
one of my
exist.
cats I don't want to come home to one of my cats boiling in a pot.
right.
That's a good point.
Remember the movie?
Yeah, no, that's a good
Right.
point.
Fatal Attraction.
That's a good point.
It's like,
Yeah.
I see you. I understand.
Fair
People
enough.
are also seeing you, right?
Yeah.
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 This is not easy, man. We need a father, because a father stands up and tells the truth, the hard truth to the family, right? When
Yep.
the family's in a difficult situation, the father stands up and says, this is where we are.
Hmm.
That we're going to have some lifestyle changes. We'll get through. We'll make it through as long as we stay loyal to each other, as long as we work and give up some comforts and do a little extra work, and we contribute a little bit more out of our leisure, funds and time into the family pot. We'll get through. And here's the plan, and here's a strategy, and it's not another fucking stable coin Genius Act Ponzi scheme.
Yep. I agree. I agree 100%.
I personally think that the revolution might come because of the stablecoin Ponzi scheme.
At a
Do you
certain,
think people are too stupid? They don't see right through that?
at a certain point, you have to like do the real work. And for me, it's like you can make your podcast better. That's just from what I've learned in 6 years. You get a better camera. Okay, you can figure out a thumbnail. You can.
Yeah.
But you hit diminishing returns. Better camera, better lighting. Okay, but at a certain point, you got to put out the content. And then I've even found, as I would kind of fix those things, it would be, you get bigger guests, and like bigger guests, they do have an uptick in views. But what I found in general is they don't hold a candle to 365 consistent normal guests. Most people probably don't know who Halsey is, probably don't know who EM is. A General Flynn, a Roseanne Barr, whatever you want, Mike Durant, and they get you a little tick. But if you look at the rest of the year combined, like orders of magnitude, maybe 100 times more, is just all the consistent base hits on the other things. And to me, that is doing the work. You can paper over the other stuff, and at a certain degree, you do need to. You got to get a better camera. You got to have a better mic if you're going to be doing this. But then there's the when a push comes to shove, and I remember it was spring 2022, and I did an episode where I just bitched and complained nonstop for an hour about why my show wasn't bigger. And I look back at that now, and that was almost 4 years ago. And right now, I don't complain at all. I'm like, oh no, this is a 20-year endeavor. I was not wanting to do the work. At a certain point, you have to you can't keep, you can't put on a tighter pair of pants. You can't, put on makeup. And hey, man, at a certain point, you cannot keep putting lipstick on a pig. At a certain point, the pig has to go work out. And I think that's where a lot of this is
turned into bacon
or do something. Yeah. So again, it's like, that's how I look is you can do this, that the long-term answer that no one wants to hear is how do you grow the podcast? Just do it every single day for years on end, and it will slowly build.
And do what you're good at also. I think that's important. Like, yes, having the Flynn's and the Roseanne Barrs and all them on are important.
All well and good.
In that they're fun conversations to have. But what you have to have are the conversations that you enjoy having, where you have a background and you're able to participate. That's what your audience wants. Your audience wants, they otherwise they could turn into the 500 other people that interview Flynn or Roseanne Barr, right? They want to see you have the conversations that your channel brings up.
Correct.
Right. So like because I ask my audience constantly, I'm like, who would you like to see me talk to? And almost always I hear, bring back EM, bring back Tom Luongo, bring back Tommy. Like they want to see me just bringing back the people that I already have. They don't care about like, can I reach out to
none of them,
such and such big name.
If anything, your fans will be like happy for you. They'll be like, oh, that's cool you interviewed Roseanne. They're like, I don't give a fuck. And you're like, oh, wait. And so when people always ask me, what guests do you like? I go, I'm very passionate about having guests that are passionate about something. Because after that, I'm like, it's a reaction furnace. It goes on its own.
Yeah. Right.
But I think
I even get it. I get it in the chat too. In like, I'll have a big guest on, and we'll be talking about something completely irrelevant, and the chat will be like, "No, Halsey, I really want you to talk about what's going on with Israel and Iran right now. Like, please, it's such a big news day." And I'm like, "Yeah, well, we're talking about homelessness in America right now because that's the guest specialty. Sorry." And it's like kind of like then I get bored. Well, and I don't want to be disrespectful to the guests. I don't want the guests to look at me and see that I don't really care what they're saying. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm good at faking it, but I don't want to do that either. I want to talk about the things I want to talk about. That's why I like throwing invites out to people because I'm like, I got something I want to talk to this person about.
Which is what it comes back to is it can't be another shit coin. It can't be another new regulate. It's like at a certain point you have to do the work, and the work sucks because there's no shortcut, but the work is also beautiful. And then you go, I know exactly what I have to do. I have to walk to that tree. It's just what it is. You have to take the steps. I don't like walking. The flip side is there's no majesty around it. There's no, what's the secret formula? Left foot, right foot. And just do it until you're tired. And I think that is what we're approaching.
One selection at a time.
I think that's kind of what we're approaching.
Yeah.
Well, I think also you're seeing the negative side of that too, right? Like, I hate to beat on a dead horse, but when you see the Groypers, they're unwilling to change any opinions they have based on current events. They're only willing to stick to their line, of blaming the Jews, blaming the Republicans, blaming Trump, whatever it may be. It's the typical line of who do we blame and why will things be better when we're done blaming these people and those people are taken care of, which is just that's what
they're funded to do that. This is the National Socialist, providing an outlet for those young men mostly, and some women that are disgusted. This is exactly what the National Socialists did about the Marxist stuff that they had funded and backed and supported, by the way, with our money in the 19-teens and 1920s into the 1930s. So they took power, and then they shifted the narrative, although they started that in the 1920s with pamphlets and books, etc. What did they do? They didn't create disgust. They channeled and shaped that disgust into a narrative. Where did that lead? It led to a slaughter. A slaughter in which tens of millions of people died. and vast fortunes were stolen, never to
And
be
still
returned,
are.
and
Still
still
are.
are never to be
Yeah.
returned. Right? So this is where they are shaping us with that crowd and community. That's why they had to kill Charlie Kirk, because he was the antipode for that.
And when you see
Right?
what's come after they did kill Charlie Kirk, you understand it accomplished exactly what they wanted.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's why everybody is claiming the mantra of Charlie Kirk when basically none of them are like Charlie Kirk at all.
Correct.
You know? And again, and it's like they were ready to do it. They
Right.
knew that this would happen as soon as it happened. So, and if you
Correct.
try to talk about it, you're a conspiracy nut.
This is why I'm saying I think revolution is already underway, and then it's a matter of who's going to lead that revolution. Is it going to be these national socialists who are going to try and repeat 1930s, 40s Europe? Only now we're the Germans. And oh, by the way, technically down underneath, we are Germanic peoples, right? Even you people, Halsey, you're other people because you got English in you too.
My grandfather and grandfather are from Germany. So trust me, I know.
Right? We are Germanic peoples. So they're trying to do this. You know, we're at war with Rome. Rome hates the Germanics. We killed two of their legions in the forest, the Teutoburg Forest, and they have never forgotten that. Nope. They were never able to conquer us. They've never forgotten that. Right? Old war, you know, von Clausewitz, what did he say? Wars never end. They just change phase.
Yep. Well, it's true. It's not even like that could be argued with.
What did they do in the last century? They destroyed Germany twice. Now it's our turn.
Yeah. Oh, trust me, the British system has a long memory, right? And everyone that's embarrassed them throughout their history, they've tried to come back and destroy over and over and over again. Well, they hold.
The British system is Rome. That's the reoccupation through the Venetian Dutch vector. That is the reoccupation through the city of London by holding the crown of Rome. That's Rome 2.0. That's what Constantine figured out in the 4th century. Rome had to virtualize. And how did it virtualize? It virtualized into into an ideological belief system. Initially Orthodox, and then 1054 schism split, and the Western Roman Empire rose again as in the form of the Holy Roman Church, Holy Roman Catholic Church. That's what we're at war with. Go back and read why Henry VIII actually did what he did to kick the Catholics out. It had nothing to do with wives. That was the PR, cover for it. It was because at the time, the Catholic Church controlled 60% of the revenue generating properties and assets in the British Isles.
Yep.
And it was
100%
growing.
True.
That's why he kicked them out. And they've never forgotten that.
It's also why India is still such a shithole. Because they've never been okay with the idea that they had to leave India on the border of China and on the crossroads of the Middle East with the Indian Ocean. They've never been okay with it, so they've kept it just a toilet.
I'm going to give you a slightly different take. I don't think the British ever left India, and I think that's the real threat that we're facing now. The English had to pull back because we'd slaughtered ourselves in 2 wars. Because that's the other thing. It wasn't just a lot of Germans that died in the wars. It was the Englishmen that died in great numbers too, particularly in World War I, and that wiped out the I can't remember the term, but all the best and brightest and greatest of the English-speaking peoples were wiped out in World War I. Hell, just look at Gallipoli and the Australia, the Kiwis and the Aussies, right? 300,000 of them, I think.
Yep, I think it was even more than that.
Might be, right? So, we are at war with Rome. Rome hates Germanic peoples. The English-speaking peoples are Germanic peoples. We are speaking a German language. What do? They take us through this financialist kill chain. Okay, what's the last step before step 7? Okay, well, they've got to codify all of the assets. What is cryptocurrency? What is tokenization? What are digital, CBDCs? Don't think about programmable money. Think about how that programs the ledger and registry of your assets.
We'll also think of it in a word that you used before. It's a derivative.
It's a derivative.
It's a way for you to bet on something that isn't real without owning the underlying asset that makes it appear to have value.
So I fundamentally agree with that. For me, all the cryptocurrency, stablecoin, all this other stuff is far more dangerous because it is the modern doomsday book of William.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Codifying every asset. So what is the greatest pool of wealth ever accumulated in human history? It's the boomers' wealth. What is the one? And it's not all in the form of retirements and pensions and houses. It's collectible cars, collectible art. It's all these things. Like my father's 10,000 books. Some of them are very old, like 400-year-old books. That's right? So what do you do? Like we have an original copy of the Council de Trent. Right, my brother
mentioned
and I,
the gold, the silver, all of the stuff that they don't make any of that stuff out of it anymore.
Jewels, right? Right? So people don't think about how much assets the boomers really have. They were one of the first collectible generation where they went out and collected all kinds of things for the last 300 years.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's all in their asset pools.
Yep.
It's not just the pensions and the stocks and the properties and all of this, which can just be taken by governments, et cetera. It's a vast amount of other wealth and other things. Okay, mm-hmm. Well, and that's trillions of dollars, quite literally trillions of dollars. Well,
and they've worked very hard to demonetize a lot of those things. Like if you were to bring a $100,000 engagement ring to a jeweler to sell, they'll give you the price of the gold and maybe $50 for the diamond. Correct. Even though you spent $100,000 on it. Correct. You say, well, where's its value? If it costs $100,000, then why would someone only give me $250 for it? Right. And it's because they've decided that's the way they teach you that these things don't have value.
Well, and they don't want the younger generation to inherit this wealth. Mm-hmm. And they want to keep these portfolios of wealth intact because they'll live off the fees for the next 30, 40 years.
Yep.
And where is the management of these portfolios now being transitioned? India.
Yep.
Quite literally. Indian contracting companies are now more and more becoming the asset managers behind mm-hmm. the scenes. Okay, well, who's sitting in all the companies, the stocks? More and more Indians.
Mm-hmm. Okay, look at FedEx. You saw this thing with FedEx? FedEx just got the contract to do the shipping for the U.S. government. The CEO fired 20 American employees, Indian guy, and applied for 20,000 American employees and applied for 20,000 H-1Bs.
Yes.
This
is reoccupation by Rome through the Indian vector.
Mm-hmm. I'd agree with that.
The English are expended. The only place the English are not expended are here in the United States, in Australia, and in New Zealand. There's mm-hmm. not enough Kiwis to really matter, and they're being overrun. Australians there are. If just the Americans, the Australians wanted to do the hard thing and reset the English-speaking world, we could do it ourselves.
Easily.
And we've got some Canadians, and we've still got good boys in England, too, and mm-hmm. Scotland, and Ireland, and Wales, and Cornwall, and East Anglia, and right? Mm-hmm. We are being reoccupied by Rome through the Indian vector.
I wouldn't even disagree with that, because anyone with even the semblance of thought would be able to say that if the Indians are so valuable and so intelligent, so well trained, why wouldn't they want to keep them in India to grow India, which has money, land, power, everything? But they don't. They're constantly arguing about where are we going to export more of them.
And they're all over the former empire mm-hmm. in great numbers.
Yep. But you don't hear about Indian.
No loyalty to us whatsoever. And in fact, they've been conditioned to hate us for 2-3 centuries.
Not to mention a step further, they don't even care about themselves so much. If you ever go into a regular convenience store and then into an Indian one, and this, again, I don't dislike Indians, but if you go into the Indian one, all the signs are written in magic marker. They're held up by duct tape. If there's a broken window, they just put some tape and cardboard over it. There's no pride whatsoever in their business. All there is expense that they're trying to limit. You know what I'm saying? Because they figure you'll buy a pack of Twinkies for $6 no matter what.
If you want to financially rape and pillage the boomers' wealth, what's the one ethnic group you would bring in and put into all the little positions, including in government increasingly, in the judiciary, in all of the holes of power, in all the big corporations, every one of our major corporations, which again, I said this before, but even 15 years ago, this would have been impossible on national security basis.
Sure.
That the biggest intelligence collection company in the world, Microsoft, would have an Indian as the CEO, or the second largest intelligence collection agency in the world, Google, would have, and not just at the CEO level, but every tiering and every layer down from there, right down to the guys writing the code, which again would be a national security issue 15 years ago.
Well, that's why I get so mad that everybody keeps harping about China. And I say, anyone who says it, I just say, I really would like you to stop, because China is not an enemy; they're a competitor. And you treating them like an enemy does nothing but distract from everything, because China is not an enemy. They don't care about us. You know,
what people need to realize is that it's not that they don't care about us. The Chinese do care about us. Why? Because we are the ones who broke China free of the British system. That's what Nixon did when he went there. That's why they cooed Nixon out.
I agree with you 100% on that.
Nixon went to China with the backing of the old families and said, we are going to make sure that China is not in the British system. Yep. And how did they do it? They brought industry, they brought manufacturing, they brought technology, and they helped China. We've helped China all the way into the 90s until the British started to come back through the financial vector in the late 90s, early 2000s. But we helped China for 20 years to leapfrog ahead of everybody else so that they could have independence from this British Roman, this hidden imperial control. And they're still finally breaking free. The Chinese are immensely grateful to us for that. And anyone who spent any time at any high level there in China will know that.
And if you notice, though, that's the thing. If they'll ban Huawei products on national security grounds. Huawei, sorry. Yeah. But they won't ban Indian coders at our top agencies. They'll turn FedEx over to India.
And contractors who work directly for the NSA doing NSA shit.
Yep. And if you look, like, who's the head of the Progressive Caucus in the Senate? Indian, Pramila Jayapal, who did that whole race to dinner thing, trying to stir up racial. That was another Indian. That it's their dislike of American systems is, and again, I think it's a part British, part of their caste system, and all of that. It's not that it's subversive; it's just different.
No, I'm sorry about that, but the ones in these positions of authority and power know exactly what they're doing.
No, I'm sure, but I don't
average Indians, most of them just looking for a better life than they can have back in India. But the ones
that's what I meant. The ones that are in power, I don't attribute race, class, or anything. Like, the oligarchs are what they worship is what they worship. They're not Jewish, they're not Catholic, they're not Indian. They're just British. They're part of
They're British Raj, right? They're British Raj. They are Roman. The Roman imperial system that's been destroying the English-speaking people for 300 plus years. Look who did all of the information PSYOP campaigns against King Charles I. It was the Catholic Church. That's what got our king beheaded, and we weren't loyal.
I have a friend. He's really into like, whenever he hears one of these new Jewish rumors or talking points, he's really into, like, diving into the data to look at it, right? And everyone says that Jews are responsible for mass immigration into this country, and they point to the one charity, highest. So he's been digging into it, and there's over 700 charities that are paid by our government to bring in the illegals. One of them is Jewish, highest. Almost all the rest are Catholic or Lutheran. Almost all of them. You know what I'm saying? And their budgets are 10 times higher than Highest could even dream of.
What entity is the largest slumlord in the world?
The Catholic Church.
Catholic Church. By far. They got to rebuild all that, the billions. I think it was something like somewhere between 13 and $18 billion they lost in all the pedophilia lawsuits.
Also, they've got to come back from all the hospitals that they shut down because they couldn't offer the different things that the government required. So they shut a lot of them down. Those were money pits for them. But now they were easy to get rid of. But now they're trying to figure out a way to come back into healthcare.
It's Rome. We are at war with Rome. You think our ancient enemy, our 2,000-year-on enemy, doesn't learn and adapt?
Hmm. I agree. I
It's
agree.
ludicrous for that. And we are the Germanic peoples. We are the ones that they fear and hate the most. Fear us because we've destroyed them on the field of battle,
Hmm.
and they hate us because we won't bend the knee, much less the neck.
No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong about that for sure.
When people see it, when you realize it's Rome, I wrote this piece the other day. Boy, did I get some interesting comments. But when you realize it's Rome, and then I'm going to put something out there. I think Rome invented Christianity. I think Rome invented Islam 400 years or 300 years later as the antipode and set them loose at each other, specifically to crush and destroy the Eastern Roman Empire, Byzantium, in between those two. And then
So
once,
just so you know, you're not the only one who thinks that. I've heard that like from quite a few different people. Obviously, that I've heard it from the people that say the Jews created Christianity and Islam to do it, but
well, I think Christianity was actually designed to tear Judaism apart.
it was because it was supposed to be the inheritor. It
Yeah,
was to make Rome the inheritor of Judea
correct,
and take away the fundamental basis of
correct.
monotheism.
But it got out.
So,
But it got away, and it got away in up through the 600s and 700s,
mhm,
right? And so then from about the 700s into 1000s, till the 1054 schism, Rome worked incredibly hard to retake the power, the center of locus from the Orthodox world. Why? Because the Orthodox world is actual Rome. That's the original Rome. That's
mhm.
the Eastern Empire, great, direct, unbroken lineage. Well, you can't have Rome, a resurgent Western Empire Rome, if Byzantium's still around,
Yep,
right? And
100%.
then I look at it, I'm like, okay, well, then Christianity and Islam got out, did what they wanted it to do, but it was getting a little out of control, like 100 years war, 80 years war, 30 years war, 50 years war, etc. So what do? They released the Enlightenment and atheism.
Hmm.
Okay, well, that worked incredibly well. Problem is, then it led to the state, right? And then that led to the Westphalian system. Well, then that led to the state being, the new church. Well,
Of
that was a
course.
threat to Rome, even though they created that. So what do? Well, you create communism. You unleash that into the more powerful states.
Hmm.
Okay, well, then that gets out of control fairly quick, and it goes really bloody really quick. Okay, well, we'll create these national socialists. We'll set them loose, just like Christianity and Islam were created. We'll now create the antipode. Same people, same concepts, same basic ideology, but we're going to set them loose on each other. Boy, that worked,
Yeah, right.
right? That worked unreal. That killed way more people in way shorter period of time. That got way out of control because we even got nuclear weapons out of that one.
Hmm.
Okay, what do you do next? Computationalism. And that's
Explain.
where technocracy
Okay, that's what
and
I thought you
copy.
meant. I wanted to make sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, financialism has always been there. That's the base, right? Going all the way back to the Venetians, who are the Praetorians, unbroken. Computationalism is this new religion. I've written on this as well. That's emerging. That is, believes that the universe is computation, and you know that's not exactly right. People have to read the article I wrote. I wrote it several months ago, but basically what it is that the computational field is God,
Hmm.
and the Holy Ghost, the Holy Spirit, is quantum computing, and the give me a second quantum computing, and Jesus, the Savior, is artificial intelligence.
Yep.
Right.
Although no one
Mhm.
can articulate how any of these things are actually going to make things better. They have to use a kind of weird distraction to be like, well, AI will be able to do this and AI will be able to do that.
Well,
And then if you say, well, if AI is going to take over like 80% of our jobs, then what are people going to do? And they go, oh, that's what they said about whale oil when we started burning oil. It's like, no, It's not the same thing, not even close.
Well, this is what it is. Okay. The National Socialism Communism thing ran away. That's what we're seeing in Ukraine right now. It's just killed 2 million people in 3 years. That one turned out to be a very virulent, way more than Islam and Christianity, and way more than atheism and statism. This turned out to be way more deadly. Okay, so what's computationalism? Like, I'm seeing it. The videos are popping up, right? High-end, AI generated videos about quantum AI and how it's finding interdimensional beings in simulations and things. Mm-hmm. It's like, Jesus Christ. Okay, see them using somebody's words, but it's like, holy fuck, people, do you not see what's being done? It's okay. The point I'm getting at is that the religious ideological concepts and ideas and sophisticated, complex pantheon and canon and everything else laid down in, the first council of Nicaea, first and second councils of Nicaea, and then refined all the way up through the 1054 schism. That whole system, that whole concept and idea, the whole ideological system that they created Christianity with, then they created Islam with, then they created atheism with, because atheism is a religion. It's just as rigorous as Christianity or anything else,
if not more.
If not more. Even more. People are even more hard. And then statism, right? And then communism and National Socialism. Okay, well, we better, all that's broken down. We've tried all of those, and we've killed. Every century we've killed more than every other century before combined.
Yep.
Going back over 1,000 years, and really going back to the 300s, right? Mm-hmm. Every century we've killed more than every century before.
Yep.
Okay. So now they're trying to shift to this computationalism because humanity is exhausted and worn out and broken down. And three really, but one hasn't finished yet, but two other great powers have restored themselves despite everything thrown at them over the last several centuries. That's the Russians, Orthodox, but really Russians. And by the way, most people don't know this, but the Russian royals, the people who built the Russian civilization were Varangian guards.
Mm-hmm. I did know that.
They were Varangians, and they were invited in by the Slavic tribes and the Slavic kingdoms, principalities, because the Slavic principalities could not stop warring with each other. So they brought in the Vikings, Swedish Varangian Vikings, out of the court of Constantinople and set them up as the Rurikid family. And that is the ruling family in Russia since the 900s, maybe or even before that. Right? So Russia has said, who are Varangians, structurally, ideologically, etc., although still Slavs, right? No, we're not playing this anymore. And Putin just the other day said it again. We are not part of your Roman world. He said it outright.
I saw him say, yeah.
Right?
I know what you're saying. Yeah.
China's done the same. There's only one other population that has enough people and is not a civilizational people. And there are a whole different massive ethnic groups and linguistic groups and et cetera. And that's what we call the Indians, which is itself a British construct. Because when we got there, that whole subcontinent was a mess.
Still is.
And it was a mess for 200 years before it finally was shaped up in the 1680s into a single entity.
And then we broke it apart again.
Right? Because we needed Islam and whatever else, right? We needed Islam as a weapon in the world, as a threat in the world. Why? Because we found oil.
And you're still seeing it today. The only untouchable group that can't possibly leave are Islam. Everyone else is supposed to bend over backwards to accommodate Islam, but not anything else. Islam's not expected to accommodate us, and we're not. They're considered untouchable.
Because they're the ones who have been created in the 600s specifically to be violent and suicidally violent.
Yeah. You're not wrong.
So I personally believe all of this was made up starting in the third century, and we've just changed the label and the wrapper, but the structure, the system, the ideological concepts and ideas, they're all the same. And then they run away. And what's been happening is every new one that they've attempted runs away farther, faster, and way more deadly than any of the ones before.
You're definitely not wrong about that either.
And somewhere in there, around the time of the Crusades, some Jews said, "We'll be the whipping boys."
Yeah. It was a
Right?
fair trade. They had no other option, so it was a fair trade.
It was a fair trade.
It's just whether these systems will break or we'll have to break them. That's, I guess, going to be the eternal question.
Okay, so Halsey, you just brought something up that I think is a wonderful thing. They finally run up against two hard constraints, though, and that's the laws of thermodynamics and the laws of conservation of energy, and actually also Maxwell's equations.
Hmm.
This one requires, so all the other ideological things required words and priests and rituals and things, that would, unlock inside the human's mind. And you do cathedrals and you do your, you do Barack Obama's library, which is like a temple, communist temple, right? Or I don't know if that one's National Socialist or communist. I can't tell the difference. It's so brutal.
It's anti-colonialist.
Okay.
That's the difference between Obama and all the others, is that you have people that are anti-racist, you have people that are pro-tribal, you have all of this. Barack Obama was different because he was anti-colonialist. He sees wealth and power as being an evil source of oppression throughout the world, and that the world is better off without it, and therefore the cultures that have been dominated by imperialism are the ones that are the true inheritors of the earth. And that's why he doesn't see America as being an amazing country.
Except everything he did was as an imperial czar, emperor, etc.
Well, you got to be the imperialist to break imperialist in his weird mind. But I hear you.
Yeah. So the difference this time, though, is that in order for them to bring about this transition to this new ideology, they have to actually make it work computationally with computers. It's why they're rushing to build all these data centers and why they're, pushing so hard for AI and quantum computing and all of this, even though neither one of them are real. This one, they actually have to, provide the demonstration of.
Yep.
And I think what they've done, because we cannot do this thermodynamically, primarily on heat dissipation side more than energy creation and utilization. But on heat dissipation side alone, we can't do it. Laws of conservation of energy and then Maxwell's equation, yada, 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 right? So I think this time they've actually cornered themselves with a transitional ideology that's not physically possible. Whereas where they kept the other ideologies mostly conceptually, spiritually, this one they gave themselves a hard substrate that they, a hard construct, physical construct that we can physically see whether it succeeds or not.
Mm-hmm.
And there's enough people who have very solid backgrounds in physics and chemistry and in electrical engineering like myself and other things to know, and technology, to know that that's not possible. It doesn't mean they're not, like these videos I'm seeing, some are very well done, but they're openly stating that quantum AI is finding interdimensional beings and all these other things. And
but remember, this has also been common in the past too. Hitler believed in
yeah, that's true.
The Atlantans, and communism believed in a type of death spiral to rid humanity of this and that. Like this is all not anything new.
Well, no, absolutely. No, I completely agree with you. The difference, though, is that this one, they're going to have to physically demonstrate that it's real. And I think they've trapped themselves in a corner there.
Agartha, that's what I was looking for.
What's that?
Hitler was Agartha. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah, I'm not familiar. Yeah.
Hitler's weird religion believed that they were that Germans, the Aryans, were the descendants of Atlantis. And that in order to... Huh?
He appointed the Ananurba Society, which went around trying to find all these esoteric proofs that they were from some Lemurian Atlantis fucking plug and play
Well,
white girl
maybe
with dreads.
Atlantis was in Jutland, which is now
No,
on the
you have
English
to
Channel.
understand. You have to understand the level of crazy that we don't teach people. That both the Nazis, the communists, they believe some really fucked up shit.
Every that is the way in which these ideologies become so powerful.
Hmm.
Is they have some twisted, warped, nuanced way to retell the secret knowledge.
Yep.
And then
I mean,
you just let the
that's what the
linguistic
Groypers
monkeys
have.
run with it, and that's where they go. And what comes out of it, a belief system.
Well, I say that all the time. That's why the Groypers have the Jewish question, is because it gives them knowledge to this vast conspiracy of being of control that only they know, and they're being stopped from saying, even though no one actually stops them from saying anything. You know, and it's a sick way of thinking, and it's a sick way for us to conduct a society because there's no unanimity at all. Like we have no desire to be united as a people as of right now, and that's going to be our uncoming.
Well,
Is
I
if we
think the
can't.
Russians are showing way, which is two things. One, we are Russians, and that's not an ethnic thing because they're Chechnyan Russians and they're Kazakh
Mhm.
Russians and they're
Agreed.
Turkmenis and right. These are all and the old Cossack peoples, which is 40 different tribes. They're all Russians. The other thing though that Russians demonstrate is when it gets right down to it, smash.
Hmm.
Right? When it gets to somebody or something's putting us in danger and threat, like you're walking towards me with a knife out, you're negotiating with me, you're discussing, but you got a knife and it's pointed between my fourth and fifth rib.
Yep.
And you're just walking steadily and you got a smile on your face and you're very polite and civil, but you keep moving towards me with that knife. And there's nothing I can say or do that stops you from, we're having a dialogue, but it's not stopping you from moving ever closer to me with that knife pointed, between my fourth and fifth rib on my left side.
Yep.
At some point, I got to smash you. I got to stop talking, stop using words, and pay attention to the fucking knife pointed between my ribs at my heart.
Yep. There's no more negotiations to be had.
Right?
Hmm.
So back to the revolution. I think this is what's happening. And unfortunately, it's being shaped by this group of people because they want to try and replicate the destruction of the Germanic peoples as they did in the last century twice.
Well, I guess we'll have to see on this one. I mean, again, I don't disagree with you if things continue in their same trajectory. I just see the trajectory changing. So, again, we'll have to see.
That would be nice. That would be nice. Maybe we learn from the last several centuries of slaughter because if this one goes, they're already telling us they want to reduce the population down to about 600 million. They're telling us openly it will be a slaughter unlike all other slaughters combined that we've ever done. And I mean this quite genuinely. From at least 1000 AD on to this very day, every century we've killed more people than all previous centuries combined.
Yep. I know. I know that's true because I quote it all the time.
And now they want us in this century to go way above that number. They want us to wipe out roughly 8 billion people.
They could want all they want.
Well, point being is that we need to wake up and we need to not allow them to drive us into that place. And this gets back to the very beginning and the article I wrote about my brother this morning. We have
Which is funny because I have it pulled up. I haven't read it yet.
Well,
I got really busy and I haven't read it yet.
All good. We have got to reach young men and not let these groypers and others, because there's going to come others afterwards who are way more refined and way more precise and many different flavors so that it's not one, right? We have got to get to young men and we have got to do it now.
Yep. I'm with you on this.
Always cheery. Just the cheering.
Yeah, Tommy, I got to run anyway. But
whenever I do these shows, I always just find myself halfway through. I'm like, I know what's coming, and yet I keep inflicting these on myself. just see it. I'm like, motherfucker. Like, no one's doing it but me. Yeah, I mean, yeah. All right, well, I'll let you run, Halsey. So, guys, we'll wrap it up. EM and Halsey, thank you both for your time. And again, as always, I say, don't take my lack of talking as lack of interest. These are
No,
the
not at
shows where I
all.
try to fuck. I'm just trying to keep up mentally. Um, but I'll send this to you guys when it'll be up later today. And for everybody
Perfect.
listening, you guys can go to the description. You can follow all their Twitters, their writings, their blah 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 blah. It's all in there. Halsey, EM, gentlemen, thank you both.
Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you.
All right, guys, take care. Hey guys, real quick, you guys know Basil Baz, ARC, the Association for the Recovery of Children. I just did a fundraiser with them the other day, and I'm going to put this on to every episode I do. They are special forces veterans who physically rescue trafficked children. They have since 1993. They have a 100% success rate. They do not take salaries. They all have day jobs, and they literally rescue sex trafficked children. Donations to them are a tax write-off. I get nothing from them, and they have not asked me to put this on. I've included this little clip on episodes for the last year or so, and I'm just re-recording it because I just got to meet him just 2 days ago for future. It's November 25th, 2025, but this will be on every episode now for the next year. And there is nothing better you can do with your money. Um, if you can support them for even $5, please do that. It is, they truly are doing the Lord's work, and I think we all have an obligation to do that. Thank you so much.
Higher ultraviolet exposure is associated with lower mortality. The United Kingdom is a high latitude and low sunlight country. Researchers there collected data on over 360,000 participants in a study of UV exposure via solarium use. When compared with non-users, solarium users had 15% risk lowered of all-cause mortality, 23% lower risk of cardiovascular mortality, 14% lower risk of cancer mortality, and a 12% lower risk of non-cardiovascular, non-cancer mortality. In other words, all other causes. Quoting the researchers, our study adds to the growing evidence that the benefits of UV exposure outweigh the risks in low sunlight environments. A link to the original publication is available in the box below the video. Get some UV light this winter. Immerse yourself in the tranquility of the blue. Visit a Blue Room soon. www.blueroom.com.
Hey guys, a huge sponsor of the show is Heaven's Harvest Prepper Food. Clayton lives down in Georgia. He's been on the show before. It's actually nearby where I went to college. They are a huge sponsor of the show. They give me some money every month, even when I don't sell enough to warrant that paycheck. Meaning that the show is not free. It's just that it's free for you. If you guys need prepper food, or if you're just interested in supporting the show, I'd please ask you to go to the link in the description. Go to Heaven's Harvest Prepper Food, promo code TPC for 10% off. 72 servings per pail, 25-year shelf life. These things are, they double as dumbbells. Pasta Primavera, cheesy potato soup, mac and cheese, loaded baked potato casserole, chili mac, cheddar broccoli soup, cheesy lasagna, teriyaki rice. You can get banana chips. There's also raspberries, strawberries, and apples. There's a bunch of freeze-dried fruit, or you can even get seeds to plant your own garden. It's not a bad thing to have. It's like gold or ammunition. It's a good thing to have. It's a bad thing if you have to use it, but it's good. It's good to have it, not need it, than need it, not have it. So that's what I'd say. And if you just want to support the show, please go to the link in the description. Please go support them because they support me. Thank you so much, guys.